Hello everyone, thanks for stopping by and welcome to the WASABI Aquarium channel. In this video, I'll show you the secrets to optimally grow willow moss. If you have questions such as, please help, my willow moss has turned brown. My willow moss isn't a vibrant green as it should be. Or, my willow moss is growing painstakingly slow, then this video is definitely for you. There are only a few types of moss that can be used in an aquarium, which include mini South American moss, willow moss, flaming moss, weeping moss, and premium moss such as Oregon river moss and other aquatic moss. The fundamentals to keeping moss vivid and green is universally applied to all moss types just mentioned, as you can see right now. Let's talk about these issues, but before we do, there are a few things that I'd like you to keep in mind. So, let's get started with the fundamentals first, which will help you restore your troubled moss back into its beautiful state. At first glance, willow moss looks quite simple and beginner friendly, and I think it's often introduced to beginners by most aquarium stores. There are generally 3 steps to propagating moss successfully. Master these steps and your moss will thrive. First is water temperature, second is light intensity, and third, general water hardness, measured in pH. First of all, everything in your aquarium will be much happier if you have the correct water temperature. As with almost all types of aquarium plants, they aren't going to enjoy a high temperature, especially those hotter days. So, if you don't pay attention to it, your moss and plants would definitely convert to that strange brownish color, or may even melt. As mentioned in previous videos, around 23 to 24 degrees Celsius is most desirable. I also think many beginners would have some form of tropical livestock in their aquarium. Keeping that in mind, there's nothing detrimental if the water temperature varies minutely. Fluctuations between 25 to 27 degrees Celsius is perfectly fine. If the environment of the aquarium is good, everything should be fine. Depending on the type of moss, it can generally cope in these conditions. So, keep in mind the various requirements of the type of moss available. In general, the sweet spot is around 24 degrees Celsius. Next is the second step, lighting intensity, which refers to the amount of light and spectrum the moss is receiving. Willow moss enjoys slow growth in medium lighting. Your moss will struggle if the light is insanely strong, in terms of wattage ratings, which makes the water very hot, and also the distance between the light and the moss. I recommend you have enough distance between the light and the aquarium itself, as this scenario will be catastrophic to your moss, as heat and intensity of the lighting may be critical. So, as long as you have enough distance between the light and the aquarium, you'll be fine. I think you'll be good as gold if you place the moss where there is some coverage amongst your aquarium plants, like so. Moss is generally a low to medium light sort of plant. The higher the lighting, the more the moss will likely to brown. For lush green moss, have a look into your lighting. Please keep this in mind. On to the third step, water hardness. Water hardness is as important as the first 2 steps. If you nail this step as well, you'll definitely have good growth. However, please note the conditions of the moss will also degrade if the pH is unbalanced. You've probably either attached your moss to driftwood or stones. Which is better, you may ask? I personally think moss thrives on driftwood a lot better. The plus side is moss grows very beautifully on driftwood. Keep in mind that your driftwood may cause acidic water conditions, or the stones in your hardscape may cause high alkalinity. A bonus tip is to attach the moss properly on your driftwood, like so, or else you'll have really strange growth. It's all about maintaining a suitable environment for your moss. Keep these 3 steps in mind. There are a few additional factors that I would like to cover. If your moss is struggling in your aquarium, this part of the video will definitely benefit you. Let's have a chat about the 3 environmental factors that impact your moss. The first of the 3 will be really obvious to you. First of all, it's going to be water changes. This also applies to other plants such as Barbatus or Java fern, as I've seen them impacted at the same time as the moss. Becoming brownish in colour and losing some leaves. It's all in correlation to the water changes, so if you see little improvement after 1 water change per week, try twice per week. By taking out and diluting new fresh water in, the plants will improve with high possibility they will begin to thrive once again. However, if the water pH is out of balance, it will have the opposite effect. I suggest checking the quality of the tap water with something like a pH or TDS pen. It's a known fact that pH dictates success or failure in the aquarium hobby. Keep your water changes up to spec and you'll be fine. Just ensure that you consider local climate and tap water conditions, as warmer water will cause other issues. Next, the second environmental factor is nutrients. Not understanding nutrients will give you a headache. Willow moss, like any other type, can survive on poor nutrients, but it can also flourish with good nutrients in the water column. As you know, poor nutrients are a problem to all plants in your aquarium by stunting growth. So, if your aquarium has poor nutrients in the water column, then most of your plants will begin to lose a lush green colour. This is the typical beginners and intermediate overlook. You might think, well, I don't need to dose nutrients because it's moss. Yeah, I hear that all the time. But wouldn't you be much happier if your moss thrived with additional nutrients? If your aim is for a low-tech aquarium, then you're already in it for an undernourished aquarium with minimal interactions. So in this scenario, you will see your plants and moss lose its vividness and original colours. If you have an aquarium with moss and other plants, you're going to need to add fertilizers so that the nutrients are available to the plants to thrive. The most important nutrient that you can add is potassium into your aquarium. Here, I'm using ADA Green Brighty Neutral K. This is a liquid form of potassium. As you can see, it's quite simple to dose. Keep in mind to dose in accordance to the actual water volume in your aquarium, otherwise you'll inherently encourage algae blooms, so it's best to control your dosing. In conjunction with dosing potassium, and depending on the plant, may require macronutrients. Together with the addition of nitrogen, the plants will show vivid greens. If your plants, for example your moss, are a bit dull, that's the reason why. Your plants may remain brownish for a while as it progressively recovers. Day by day, the plants will recover traces of green. So, if you think your aquarium is lacking green, by all means, dose ADA Green Brighty Nitrogen. For most, ADA Green Brighty Nitrogen should do the job, but remember, livestock such as fish also produce nitrogen. You may also want to consider your aquarium's nitrogen cycle. Think about the existing nutrients in your aquarium and formulate a dosing schedule to a balance. There are videos explaining nutrients in detail linked in the description box below. Make sure you check them out. Next, the third environmental factor. This part will help people experiencing issues with slow growth. That means your aquarium is lacking the presence of carbon dioxide, or CO2. I've seen aquariums where plants look okay and surviving without CO2 injection, albeit a very slow growth. Beginners typically are without CO2 injected aquariums, so the plant growth are painstakingly slow. Anyway, when it comes to moss, they do appreciate the addition of CO2. As everything in this world is built on carbon, and moss is no exception. I've experienced this before. The absence of CO2 in my aquarium saw extremely slow growth. So, an unbalanced aquarium will definitely impact your plant's growth. Slow growing brownish moss is definitely attributed by the factors mentioned in this video. An imbalance will cause the plant to cease photosynthesis and the plants will start to melt. You can increase the growth and propagation just by adding CO2, encouraging those plants to photosynthesize. With a balanced dosing schedule, the plant's growth speed becomes so much faster. It's really up to you, but I personally would recommend you invest into it. So yeah, you can have an aquarium without CO2, but for a beautiful aquarium, CO2 is a must. Please consider tinkering with CO2. It will definitely help spruce up your planted aquarium. With CO2, you'll have a beautiful nature aquarium. As you can see, the result of having CO2 is beautifully contrasted. So, how's the video? You can have a beautiful aquarium too, by simply incorporating the takings from this video. If you have any questions, or you would like us to explain anything, feel free to submit your comment below. Rest assured that all your comments below are read. Unfortunately, I don't have time to reply to them all, but if I see trending questions, I will collate and answer them in future videos. As usual, if you find this video useful, I'll gladly appreciate it if you like, share, and subscribe to the WASABI Aquarium channel. It takes a lot of time and effort, and your acknowledgement means a lot. It will help the channel flourish with more videos to help you at home. So, I'll end the video here. Thank you for watching.